in the infiltration of many cultural groups. Before we go into that step by step, how much research and study did the FBI engage in of black culture in the late 60s?
A great amount.
Give me an idea.
From the thing is, I can, they have a file on every type of magazine that blacks read. They have a file on the music.
Music?
Music, dance, theater, actors, comedians, you name it, man.
And they would actually study these different...
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely.
What would they do with music?
To understand the people, you have to understand the culture. To infiltrate, you have to understand. You had a lot of so-called white liberals that were infiltrating the so-called black groups using the information that they had gathered from the studies of blacks.
You mean just to understand the behavior pattern of our people?
Oh, yeah, I can, Will Heaton could name out some jams of Miles Davis that I hadn't even heard of. He could name off some books that I hadn't even read pertaining to black culture.
Did you ever see agents actually studying the music of...
Yes, yes. Yes, I've seen them going over even video portion of cultural events. The understanding, like when, you have an organization like Leroy Jones' Black House. You remember that. Okay, Leroy Jones's place, which was done on the thing of tribalism. That's where I first heard the word Kintu, Mantu, Huntu, Hentu. These words of the African continuum. I learned that from an agent. He ran it down to me. They make in-depth studies of the personalities of the people they're dealing with too, culturally. It always helps it's the thing of you can take their culture and use it against them.
How large would you say an extensive collection on our culture would you say the FBI has? Would you rate it as large as a particular library, like the Schomburg Library in Harlem? Or...
I would rate it better. I would rate it better, and the fact is that they go into details that we probably would overlook. Will Heaton used to meet me in different places. You know, Will Heaton, that was one of my supervising agents. There is a certain bar in the Los Angeles area where people into black cultural things met, and Will Heaton used to meet me there. And he would go into very long and tiring conversations with some very articulate brothers about culture, African culture, and Afro-American culture.
Tell me about some of the cultural organizations that you infiltrated and what you did.
PASLA, Mafunde, Watts Writers Workshop, which they have...
The Watts Writers Workshop?
Yes. Watts Writers Workshop, which was one of the oldest established black writers' workshop.
That place was burned down.
Yeah. The Bureau had it burnt down.
How do you know that?
I know because I participated. I did the arson.
You burned down the Watts Writers Workshop?
Yes.
Why did they want it to go?
At the time, funding had been cut to the workshop, had been cut out, but it looked like there was a possibility of a grant being given back to the workshop. And if there was no theater, there would be no grant.
How did you do it?
2 cans of kerosene, Purex bottle, gasoline, and a flare, highway flare.
Why didn't you use more sophisticated stuff?
Oh, no. No. You're never overly sophisticated. It's too obvious. This way you make it look like You know, maybe somebody in the neighborhood that got kicked out of theater at one time got mad and came and burned the damn theater up, that kind of thing.
But you were involved in this theater? I mean, did it get to you at all what you were?
Hey, man, that got to me a great deal. I love that theater. I built the stage.
You built the stage?
Oh, yeah. When I got to the workshop, the stage that had been, the original stage that had been built needed an extension on it. The original part of the stage was in terrible condition. They had no lighting system. I put the lighting system in myself. I put the stage in myself. And that was a stage, man. And that was a theater. It's a nice theater.
Who was the director of that workshop?
Harry Dolan.
Harry Dolan. Some very, very well-known artists supported that workshop, gave money to it.
Some very well-known artists came out of the Watts Writers Workshop. You know, Glenn Tubman, Yaphet Kotto. Sidney Poitier used to come down there and give a class. Sammy Davis Jr. used to come down there all the time. Quincy Jones used to come there and give music classes. We had our own 8-track studio setup for sound. We had our own sound room there.
Was part of your other activities and responsibilities to study the profiles of celebrities who were supportive of organizations?
Definitely, and especially, like I said, psychological backgrounds, weaknesses and strengths. Did he have a weakness for blondes? Did he have a weakness for money? Did he snort cocaine? Did he smoke marijuana? They even get into, and that's one thing the Bureau loves, is their sexual background. They have files and files on different blacks, not only celebrities, but a lot of others, sexual activity.
What would they do with this information?
Oh, that's used as a weakness.
So they would feed to these weaknesses?
Yes.
Did you see that happen?
Oh, yes. Doc Holliday, who is one of the leaders of the BGF, Black Guerrilla Family, which is a prison gang in the California state prison system. Upon his release from prison, a certain sister made herself known to him at a nightclub, whereupon he moved in with her, and she picked up names, telephone numbers, information, you know, that kind of thing. That lasted for a good 3.5 months.
Was this an unusual thing, or did this happen often?
No, that happens all the time.
Did you yourself get involved in doing that?
Yes.
Give me an example.
There was a gentleman that was on trial in Los Angeles that belonged to the BLA that had been busted in a southern state for a bank robbery, but was brought with 2 other people to Los Angeles to stand trial for the machine gunning of a police officer in Los Angeles. I was supposed to worm my way into the affections of his sister, and whatever it took to get the information that I needed as far as what kind of defense they planned to use as to turn this information over to the federal prosecution.
Did you do it?
I got the information, and thank God I didn't have to go through with the actual thing of sexual activity.
What do you mean, thank God?
The sister was rather unappealing.
Malcolm X was kept under heavy FBI surveillance since he got out of prison back in 1953. As he rose to national prominence as the black Muslims' chief spokesman, he became aware that he was under close watch.
Our desire, our prayer, that we can have a peaceful, intelligent rally here this afternoon. But at the same time, we see that they have surrounded us with many of their own agents in uniform and out of uniform.
That surveillance escalated into the infiltration of the Nation of Islam. Personal frailties were played upon, jealousy arose, and Malcolm was ultimately ousted from that organization. This caused an intense climate of rivalry that set the stage for Malcolm's assassination in February of 1965.
He was really declared a hypocrite at the time. And because of some of the things that he was saying in regards to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, may God be pleased with him, a strong position was really taken against him. The ministers began to speak out against the things that Malcolm was saying in regards to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, accusations that he had made about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He had accused the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, for instance, of fathering children and etc. And you must understand that at that time, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to the Muslims then, was held in such high reverence as you would even think of any prophet being held in high reverence. And this is the kind of love and admiration that the Muslims at that time had for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So when Minister Malcolm began to say those things, it was taken as an outright lie. I would say that, take for instance, one time in the Muhammad Speaks at that time, the newspaper printed a big article concerning the chief hypocrite. And it actually had a picture of Malcolm's head, you know, rolling or bouncing down the street at that time. And, you know, the way that picture is depicted, you know, he has little horns on his head and things like this here. So indirectly, I would say that a very, very strong position was taken against him.
Yes, that's why he wanted me dead, because he knew that as soon as I woke up, I'd tell it.
Plan of action was basically what took place. Me and Leon, we took seats down in the front of the Autobahn. We came early. We would drift into the Autobahn. If indeed there was a search, then we could never enter. There was no search, so we drifted in just like we had hoped to. Leon Davis and myself took seats down front on the left-hand side. Benjamin and William, who carried the sort-of shotgun, sat right behind us, you know. And Wilbur sat somewhat in the back or almost in the middle. And our plan was, as soon as the brother came out to speak, that Wilbur would throw the smoke bomb to make a distraction, and that William would fire his shotgun, and that Leon and myself, we would fire our weapons, and then just break for the door.
And without any further ado, I bring before you Minister Malcolm, and I pray that you and I will listen, hear, and understand. Thank you. Salam alaikum.
As in Dr. King's assassination, a police superior has trouble with the truth. He tells reporters that 2 suspects were arrested at the Autobahn. Later, official police reports say that 1 was arrested. Also, listen closely as the police official carefully handles the question about police on the scene.
We have 2 suspects in custody now.
Where were they arrested? Who fired the shot?
I wouldn't know that at this time.
Where were they arrested, sir?
One of these men was arrested on the street by one of our patrolmen close by.
There were no police at this meeting, were there, Inspector?
There were no uniformed policemen assigned inside this ballroom.
No uniformed police on the scene. Does this mean that police out of uniform were there? And if so, why didn't they take action? What were they doing there? This behavior pattern rings a bell of striking similarity with the behavior pattern of the CIA overseas.
The church committee produced cables, demanded and got cables, which proved it traced the CIA's plan to kill Lumumba. Sid Gottlieb got on a plane and went to Leopoldville. Headquarters sent a cable saying, use the poison. Gottlieb was couriering for the poison. Headquarters sent a cable saying you have to use it promptly because it deteriorates. And they had a plan to try and get it into his toothpaste or give it to him in a Mickey at some social function. And then there's a gap and no cables, no explanation of what happened. Then 5 weeks later, he's beaten to death on an airplane. And unfortunately, though, the airplane was in the control of people who had agency cryptonyms. And the gap of what happened has never been answered. The men who were involved and were responsible obviously aren't speaking out, and there's no paper to prove anything.
So perhaps the same tactics were used against the civil rights movement. Heavy infiltration of the ranks, spread the seeds of dissension, then step back and let the blood spill.
As I see it, Mr. Chairman, it is for this committee to be able to figure out how to persuade the people of this country that indeed it did go on. And how shall we ensure that it never happen again? But it will happen repeatedly unless we can bring ourselves to understand and accept that it did go on. And I say that as one who worked as a United States attorney with the Bureau and have enormous respect for its capacities in the field of kidnapping, bank robbery, and a lot of other things, but am appalled to learn what if it's correct, the intelligence side of that Bureau was up to for so long.
You have changed your attitude about the white man in the United States to some extent.
Well, I've broadened my scope. Travel broadens your scope. It gives you a wider understanding. And I have, in my many lectures on college campuses, seen many whites, even as a black Muslim, whose reaction to much of what I had to say showed me that they were genuinely concerned. Some weren't genuinely concerned, but many of them were. And this element is increasing.
But that's a considerable change of opinion in Malcolm X.
No, today I'm speaking for myself. Formerly I spoke for Elijah Muhammad. And everything I said was, Elijah Muhammad teaches us thus and so. I'm speaking now from what I think, from what I have seen, from what I have analyzed, and the conclusions that I have reached.
And the white man is no longer the devil, and he is no longer bound to be evil.
The Holy Quran teaches us to judge a man by his conscious behavior, by his intention. And my reason for going to Mecca was to get a better understanding of the religion of Islam and what the Quran teaches. So I judge a man by his conscious behavior. I am not a racist. I don't subscribe to any of the tenets of racism.
Then there are good whites and good blacks and bad whites and blacks.
It's not a case of being good and bad, good or bad blacks and whites. It's a case of being good or bad human beings.
All right, but I want to say this to the people in closing out on this session right here. By no means, because you know people will say, oh, Sarnetta threw Khalid under the bus. Reggie threw Malcolm under the bus. We ain't throwing nobody under the bus, family. These are ancestors who we love, and we trying to remind you that the lessons of history, we got to learn the lessons of history, or we will be doomed to repeat it over and over again. That's all.
I pray that God will bless you in everything that you do. I pray that you will grow intellectually so that you can understand the problems of the world and where you fit into in that world picture.
Sun vibrates, earth revolves, how can I rise? If I perceive through a calcified third eye, Merkaba's looking like paper mache today, and words of wisdom from ancestors are now cliche, blowing like dust away, or metal rust away, doing wrong unto others and got enough to say. We shackled our slaves, now we wear cuffs today. Wanna make your wife a dyke, you go trust the gay. Iron sheet punchlines made Douglas Buster sway. Knitted times if crochet or custom made. RBG or RG, it's still MST. Getting guards off Ritalin and pills stamped with E. I go, I made. Youths chant with me. On the front lines and I got no grant with me. All diamonds are bloody, rapping blood clot dummy. Thinking that's real Imhotep playing a movie mummy. Give up a tar doll and call it an Oscar. Calling me grouch when I drop the truth on ya. Use hip-hop to wake those you call young goats at risk, cause they gun-toed and inhale gum smoke. Mufti shoot, nah, get a neck thumb poke. Trying to order me on the 9 to 5 like a slave boat. Master gets nailed to walls like plaster or gyprock. Illegal tackle in battle or catch a hip block.
And I pray that all the fear that has ever been in your heart will be taken out. And when you look at that man, if you know he's nothing but a coward, you won't fear him. If he wasn't a coward, he wouldn't gang up on you. That's how they function. They function in mobs. That's a coward. They put on a sheet so you won't know who they are. That's a coward. Now, the time will come when that sheet will be ripped off.
You're scared to say don't touch my ass, you b-boy cowards. Try that with me, ball in your face like 48 hours. Bloody your nose, maybe bloody your clothes. Kick Satan's ass in Eden's garden and bloody your rose. Bloody your spit, I'm just like bronchitis severe. Hex Alpha Omega, I'll make blood of your tears. Not on the Mike Tyson style, but I'll bloody your ears. Verbal shotgun blast you and your fam, bloody your peers. Some Pan-Africans ask why they bloody the feds. I say trail of tears is when they bloodied my fez. Without inspection, I see fiction correction. Too much diction and not enough soul reflection. Agents causing confusion from misconceptions. Distractions make blunt drops like turns missed on sessions. File for possessions, I burn up your Wessons. Smith cashing in the bonds, quick to live off pensions. Live off our tensions, I got to mention. Give Moors European names and live off our inventions. Saying I'm black to cash in on bond investments. Saying I'm a Moor, you giving me psycho assessments.
And I pray that all the fear that has ever been in your heart will be taken out. And when you look at that man, if you know he's nothing but a coward, you won't fear him. If he wasn't a coward, he wouldn't gang up on you. That's how they function. They function in mobs. That's a coward. They put on a sheet so you won't know who they are. That's a coward. Now, the time will come when that sheet will be ripped off.
Like lipo, hybrids getting under my skin. Boot stomp them like an insect, but not under Tim's. I'm into tinted windows, but not into rims. Pilgrims stole my fez and just added a brim. Stole the tassel, convince you that's a degree. Thinking you're smart with 1 out of 360. Thinking you're hot, but run for nursery and curse me. Cause I bun your fried chicken and your beef jerky. Bun out your pork rinds, discharge court fines. Bondless, send a letter, make them acquiesce. Bun the racket, racketeers with muskets modernized. Most lost their first and use modern eyes. Using words that makes language modified. Children's ain't stealing children, make them traumatized. Homos are doing promos and advertise to the lesbian solo with gay chat lines. My space is really their space, Facebook is bait. Locks and pics but bald-headed, proving you're fake. Saying they're for love, but just wanna debate their unintelligence and their lack of knowledge intake.
And I pray that all the fear that has ever been in your heart will be taken out. And when you look at that man, if you know he's nothing but a coward, you won't fear him. If he wasn't a coward, he wouldn't gang up on you. That's how they function. They function in mobs. That's a coward. They put on a sheet so you won't know who they are. That's a coward. Now, the time will come when that sheet will be ripped off.
Article 4, Section 4 of our beloved Constitution. Constitution for the United States Republic, of which we are the white people, sovereigns and founders, reads that the United States shall guarantee a Republican form of government in all the states in the Union. Why George Bush continues to say democracy. All right? This is a paradox. Right? Because we call them the government. They're in Washington, D.C. They're in Congress, the House of Representatives, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the executive branch. How do we deal with this paradox? They're using more sovereignty to oppress us. How do we deal with this paradox? Well, one of the processes of dealing with the paradox is to educate you and organize our people by the millions into government structure. Duality said in order to change the people, you must change their literature. Well, we've been changing their literature thereby changing their concept, changing their frame of mind, and thereby will change their course of action and change their destiny. All right? So you are indeed, my brothers and sisters, founders of the United States Republic, which is an evolution, modern political order of the ancient Moroccan government, the Great Seal. All right? Let's look at some pictures here. These are photos taken, will help me out, brother? These are photos taken at George Washington National Masonic Memorial Museum in Alexandria, Virginia. These are fezzes, Moorish fezzes, with Moorish names embroidered in the fezzes. The Europeans have named their shrines. There's 191 ancient Arabic orders of the nobles and mystics, temples. 191. And every one is named in our honor. Every one has a Moorish Arabic name. They know who we are. So, how do we prove that we're Moors? How do I go to my oppressor, the one who conquered me, conquered my ancestors, oppressed us? How do we go to him, and prove to him that we're Moors? Your concepts are wrong. The question is colorable. I wouldn't even answer that question. To answer that question is to give legitimacy to the colorable question. He is a foreigner. He's a pilgrim. That's already documented. He has said he's a pilgrim. He's a foreigner. All right? Show some pictures, brother. All right. This is one of the past leaders of the mystic order of the veiled prophets of the enchanted realm. What's on this fez, brother? What's embroidered on the fez? Muslim. Yeah, man, the Europeans, man, they prejudice. Man, they don't like Muslims. Lie. Lie. Europeans are Muslims, and they study the scientific meaning of Muslim. They know that it's the anatomical structure of the human body. So if I were to teach you what a Muslim is, I would have to bring out a biology book. Your children are taught what a Muslim is. I pretty much think they study biology on some level. Well, they're studying what a Muslim is. The structure of the human form. Europeans are indeed Muslims too. All right? So we got to clear up these terms. By clearing up these terms, we can change our destiny. It's important to understand definition, because definition is the basis of law. If you're not clear on the definition of a word, you are therefore being led into a negative law jurisdiction. And the dictionaries have been given connotative meanings to put us in and to keep us in a negative law jurisdiction. By not having the foundation or the etymological meaning of a word, we therefore don't have the essence and true concepts of the word. So it's very important. There's Nixon, Ford, and and FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, were members of the ancient order of the nobles of the mystic shrine. And in this picture, you have a replica of the Shriners Parade. The Shriners Parade is held in the presiding state of what they call in their structure, organizational structure, the imperial potentate. He's not the imperial potentate. Why? Because he's not a white man. He's not the sovereign. Understand that these are not just names of their order. These are duplications of our ancient order. They're learning to be you. They've traded places with us. They're substitute sovereigns. They're not the real. They're substitutes, white men. They're not white men. They're substitutes. All right? Will the real white men stand up? This one here is Islam. That's the name of one of the temples in the mystic order of the veiled prophets of the Chanted Realm. Then you have Il Bay. Il Bay is another name of one of the temples. All right, so they know who we are, and I'm presenting this to you so that you can stand firm in your declaration of our nationality and birthright. I'm going to also give you some reference points. In the consolidated treaty series, edited by Clive Perry, C-L-I-V-E, Perry, P-E-R-R-Y, the Consolidated Treaty Series. And in those collection of treaties, Clive Perry presents treaties dating back to 1630s. And what you'll find once you read the treaties and do a comparative analysis, what I've done in a series of my books that will be published shortly, is I compared the establishment of colonies on our land and to the treaties and match the dates. Those treaties revealed that we had superior political and military position during the 16 and 1700s. So the story that you've been presented with, indoctrinated with in the public schools, that the Europeans came over here, the Europeans didn't come over here. The Europeans, the emperors of Morocco, the grand potentates, the sovereign grand commanders, negotiated treaty agreements with the various kings and queens of Europe. We leased land to the Europeans, so they didn't just come over here. That was negotiated with us. You don't just go somewhere. All right? So that was negotiated through treaties. And then you'll see that. So that's why I'll give you reference. Consolidated Treaty Series. You go to Law Library. All right? Good Law Library would have the Consolidated Treaty Series. And you do a comparative analysis of the dates of the colonies and the dates of the treaties. And in the treaties, the essence of the treaties deal with Moors were supposed to, that the treaties dealt with receiving tribute payments. That the Europeans gave us tribute payments every time a Dey or Bey ascended to the throne. Europeans had to pay tribute, and gold plates, gold spoons, gold forks. Every time there was a new ascension, they were paying big time. Also, we demanded tribute payments or ransom whenever we were captured, one of the captains. And the ransom payments were high. But the treaties dealt with, settled that. Because you had Moors capturing Europeans, Europeans capturing Moors. And so the treaties were negotiated over the period of over a 200-year period to deal with that. the Europeans were not in a superior military and political position during the establishment of the colonies on our land. They were not in that position. They were not in that position throughout the world. See that the way they present the story and through reconstructed European history is that they want to create a mindset that the Europeans were in superior political position during the 1600s, during the time period in which the colonies were being formed. The treaties will disprove that.
I'm speaking now from what I think, from what I have seen, from what I have analyzed, and the conclusions that I have reached.
Then the white man is no longer the devil, and he is no longer bound to be evil?
If I judge a man by his conscious behavior, I am not a racist. I don't subscribe to any of the tenets of racism.
Then there are good whites and good blacks and bad whites and blacks.
It's not a case of being good and bad, good or bad blacks and whites. It's a case of being good or bad human beings.
Yo, X Alpha. What up, NBCs? Iron Sheik. You need to study more. Hex Alpha. Hex. I'm here to dispel the rumors. There is no hell or heaven. Fire your preacher, fire your reverend. Born alone, no need for brethren or fam. Coaxing you to eat burgers made with ham, thinking it's safe in plastic, not can. Thou shalt not kill, fire on your halal lamb. If you under and over understand the matrix, the lunar escaped the satellites by spaceship. Universal lawsuit on serious satellite owner. Doggone priest copyright infringe, judges solar. Christ Yahshua makes wine from the vine. White Jesus from water to wine, stop lying. Paper notes are worthless, that's a quote. SETI tossing fear at Dr. Ben, that's a joke. Take notes, I see you need to study more. Yeah, Turks war affairs, so did Sri Lankan Moors. Doing agents like Lupe, kick and push. Rappers with the frowsy flow, need a douche for wanting the best of both worlds like J and R Kelly. Tell her it's raining, why you pissing on her belly? T-Pain, computer love voice jacker. No diff than if your computer got hit by hackers. Lil Wayne wearing taper tight jeans. Kanye in the pop section at HMV, selling out for selling out. They love that deal, unlike D. Brad and Chappelle. These sellouts love to kneel, love the caramel nougat and nuts. Love to be up in the lodge, love to stray in the butt.
Do you feel that your message, apparent message of love that you brought back from Islam is the real reason they're after you, because you're not hating as hard as they want you to?
Well, I never did hate anybody hard.
Well, they killed Malcolm X, but they hadn't right killing him. He was for me, and he was for him. If you kill him, there's gonna be more killing going on. That's right.
Anytime a black man in this country stands up for his constitutional rights, he dies. What did Malcolm X mean to you?
He meant a great deal to me and my people. I'm sorry that a good man is gone. But the first I hear of it, I couldn't have cried anymore, I don't believe, if I had lost my mother.
How do you feel about Malcolm's killing?
I feel that it will touch off a war here in New York City between the black Muslims and Elijah Muhammad.
Do you have any other feelings on it?
Well, I feel that it will hurt the Negro cause.
In what way?
With this bloodshed being spilled now, especially when the Negroes need more help, more understanding from the white people, and the war that may take place, I feel certain that it will hurt the Negro cause.
Well, what did you think of Malcolm's philosophy, personally?
Well, I didn't agree with his philosophy, although I thought a lot of his character. I thought he was a very brilliant man. I happened to have the opportunity to listen to him one night on an all-night radio show, and what he said, I believe that he believed, you see. So he was fighting for his belief, which is what...
You respect that?
Yes, very much.
With regret, with great regret, there's no organization in this country that could do more for the struggling black man than the Black Muslim movement if it wanted to. But it has gotten into the possession
of a man who's become senile in his old age and perhaps doesn't realize it. And then he has surrounded himself by his children who are now in power and want nothing but luxury and security and comfort and will do anything to safeguard their own interests. So I feel responsible for having played a major role in developing a criminal organization. It was not a criminal organization at the outstart. It was an organization that had the power, the spiritual power, to reform the criminal. And this is what you have to understand. As long as that strong spiritual power was in the movement, it gave the moral strength to the believer that would enable him to rise above all his negative tendencies. I know, because I went into the movement with more negative tendencies for the betterment of the community by any means necessary. I mentioned the conspiracy between the Muslims and the right wing in this country. I know for a fact that there is a conspiracy between the Muslims and the Lincoln Rockwell Nazi and also the Ku Klux Klan. There is a conspiracy.
Describe this conspiracy.
Well, the Ku Klux Klan made a deal, or were trying to make a deal with Elijah Muhammad in 1960 in the home of Jeremiah X, the minister in Atlanta at that time, who at present is the minister in Philadelphia. They were trying to make a deal with him to make available to Elijah Muhammad a county, a size tract of land in Georgia or South Carolina, where Elijah Muhammad could then induce Negroes to migrate and make it appear that his program of a segregated state or separated state was feasible. And to what extent these negotiations finally developed, I do not know, because I was not involved in them beyond the period of December 1960. But I do know that after that, Jeremiah, who was the minister throughout the South, could roam the entire South and the Klan not bother him in any way, shape, or form, nor would they bother any of the black Muslims from then on, nor would the black Muslims bother the Klan.
Albert Pike, isn't he a lovely fellow? Luciferian, head of the first founder of the Ku Klux Klan, 1866. And by the way, the only black leader I have any respect for is Malcolm X. You know why? Because Malcolm X said the Ku Klux Klan and the Nation of Islam have the same paymasters. And for that, they put him to death. And according to his wife, it was the high command of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, with the high command of the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad, and Louis Farrakhan, all Masons of the Prince Hall Rite. And the Nation of Islam has nothing to do with Islam. They're fakes. It's just a hate the white man religion.
Their Nuremberg trial. They tried Nazi war criminals for war crimes, where our Johannesburg trials. If they had Nuremberg, where are our Johannesburg trials? Where we try war criminals and give them justice. Justice, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches, is the reward for good and the punishment for evil.
Love and black unity. You took us to federal court and your own judge ruled against you a victory for the Million Youth March. You appealed it and we won victory after victory. And if you attack us today by the power of our God, we'll mop these goddamn streets with you today. No good bastards. So those of you who are in charge, call your dogs off. Remember, decide now who will move the railing where you are and get to wailing on the asses here today. We'll work on all of our rappers in the future to work toward liberation lyrics and revolutionary rap. But let's give Brother Master P and No Limit Records a strong hand for financing this event here today. They're trying to shut it down on the back. Are we going to let these bastards shut it down? Now we're going to ask the police, back your asses up, and we will leave in peace. Back your asses up, and we will leave in black love and unity, but get the hell out of the way and let our people go. Don't let nobody be arrested. If they grab anyone to arrest them, and you know that it's a police riot, and it is against against even white law, then we fight like hell with those who fight against us.
My son, where is he? My son Farrakhan, give him a strong black hand. Many of you have watched him grow up right before your eyes. Very strong young man, very brilliant young man, very conscious and committed, and I just love him, love him, love him. Where's his wife? That's his queen. Look how beautiful this queen is. Give her a strong black hand, brothers and sisters. This is a beautiful queen. Beautiful sister. Devil, how did you get that sister? You got one of our best sisters, you no good bastard. What'd you say, sister? Yes, ma'am. Definitely.
This is a special presentation that he hasn't seen of Brother Muhammad, but he made some statements, and I want to let you know his son, to me, is a warrior, and it makes I want my son to be like him. He stood the whole time at attention and listened and absorbed everything his father was saying. If we have children that has been reared up like this son, with the information, like if I was a kid with this information growing up like him, we wouldn't have no problems today. There is no...
Chris Patrick here with Path Magazine. We're here at Gospel Goes to Hollywood, one of the pre-shows for the upcoming Oscars. I got here with me Farrah Gray. Is that say your name right?
Yes, sir. You
Farrah
got
Gray.
it.
He's an author, guys, doing some amazing things. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me here at the event. Author of the book Reallionaire, Get Real, Get Rich, The Truth Shall Make You Rich, now in 24 countries and 13 different languages. So it's definitely been faith. Growing up in the projects, making my first million at 14 and being 28, best-selling author, it has truly been faith that has been my foundation. And truly, as it says in the scripture, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen. And that's what this event represents to me.
Now, you made your first million at 14. I mean, some people are looking at that like, yeah, right. But how did you do it?
Well, I found what God put me here to do. I believe the two most important times in anybody's life is when we were born and when we find out why we were born. So being blessed to find that at an early age, my area of excellence, I created a food company, I created a venture capital fund headquartered on Wall Street, all at 13 and then 14 and then 15, and I continued.
Wait. Okay, break that down, because he's using them big executive words. Now, I'll just play. Okay, so the venture capital fund, and then you also had a food
company.
What was that? What was the food company?
I created a strawberry vanilla pancake syrup. I could always cook, so I figured, that was my area of excellence, getting in the kitchen, creating a product, and sharing it with the rest of the world. Growing up, we were too poor to just go out and buy syrup. My grandmother used to make it for us, and I'd hang out in the kitchen with her. So that was one of the things early on that I was able to find out that I was really good at.
Wow. Now, you had to have mom and daddy helping you out a little bit, right? How does that happen?
My biggest accomplishment was being able to retire my mother and my grandmother. Didn't grow up with my father in the house, but still a very loving, phenomenal man. Every time I got a chance to spend time with him, he was a black leader and activist. So didn't grow up with him, but I was able, and he was to succeed, and he was able to see that before he passed when I was younger.
Khalid Abdul Muhammad's son, Farrah Gray. I think his original name was Farrakhan Khalid. That's what I heard Farrakhan. That's what I heard Khalid call him. I guess he changed it after his dad died. Now, I heard he was a millionaire at 14. His dad died in 01. He was born in 84, I believe. I went on Google. Nigga said he was the same age as me. He's not the same age as me. That nigga like 28, close to 30. So that means he was what, 17? About 17? Well, how the fuck? See, this one I don't get. This said he was a millionaire at 14, but his dad died at 17. Like, what the fuck? Because I remember, I'll be watching the videos. He be right there standing with his dad.
Jews had their Nuremberg trials. They tried Nazi war criminals for war crimes. Where are our Johannesburg trials? If they had Nuremberg, where are our Johannesburg trials? where we try war criminals and give them justice. Justice, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches, is the reward for good and the punishment for evil. Let me see what else this no good cracker said.
This is a love march, black on black love and black unity. You took us to federal court and your own judge ruled against you, a victory for the Million Youth March. You appealed it and we won victory after victory. And if you attack us today, by the power of our God, we'll mop these goddamn streets with you today. No good bastards. So those of you who are in charge, call your dogs off. Remember, decide now who will move the railing where you are and get to wailing on their asses here today. We'll work on all of our rappers in the...
And I don't get it, because he don't even mention who his daddy is. Everybody knew who his daddy was. And his daddy, I know his daddy got to be turning over in that grave, because he dealing with the main people his daddy did not want him to deal with. His daddy went against who he dealing with. And his son is just a turncoat. His son is a coon. Like, I don't get it. And he sound gay as hell. Me and my brother was listening to him talking, and he said something. I said, my little brother said, "Oh shit, he sound gay." I'm like, yeah. He looked just like his daddy. A little lighter, but he looked just like his daddy. I'm like, what happened to Farrakhan's son? Did they get his ass too? Damn, man. How can you not mention your dad, man? Your dad had, and you know, he had a book saying that they was poor, they was living in the slums. I don't know if that's true or not, because every time I seen him, he was with his daddy. Now, I know him and his mom, his parents was divorced, but I don't know. How true is that? I don't know. I can't call that one. I don't know. I wasn't there. But every time I seen him, I knew Khalid loved him. I can tell you that. But that's, I don't know, man. Like, he was on the Fox. He was on this. He met Obama. I'm like, they know who his daddy is. Trust me. Like, and he can't hide it. Like, we can go on YouTube, nigga. Like, we knew who your daddy was, which was a great man. Shit, I got more respect for your daddy than you do. You know, my daddy loved me like that shit too. Shit, so you gotta mention your daddy, man. You cannot just go around trying to disassociate yourself with who your father was, which was a great man in many eyes, you dig? So I want y'all to tell me if y'all know who Khalid Muhammad is, his son Farrah Gray. Y'all can look him up on Google and YouTube, millionaire, you know. I'm like, how he came, nah, there's something fishy about that. He became a millionaire either right when his dad died up in that time. I'm like, a little fishy, you dig? But I want y'all to comment, like, subscribe, and tell me what y'all think on that. Bang, bang.
Dr. Jeffries is a Holocaust victim. My son Farrakhan is a Holocaust victim. Dr. Tony Martin is a Holocaust victim. Hi, brother, what's your name, brother? Brother who? Brother Jackson Bay is a Holocaust victim. Hi, brother, what's your name, brother? Brother who? Brother Jackson Bay is a Holocaust victim. Hi, brother, what's your name, brother? Brother who? Brother Jackson Bay is a Holocaust victim. Minister Sean is a Holocaust victim. God damn it, I'm looking at a whole audience full of Holocaust victims. All of you, you and you and you and you and you, all of you are Holocaust victims. Every last one of you is a Holocaust victim. I don't teach my baby about no Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks was the one who first to die in the American Revolution. The nigga should have died. I teach him about Nat Turner. I teach him about Denmark Vesey. I teach him about Gabriel Prosser.
What you need to do is you need to study your history. You need to study Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, and find out what these brothers was really about. Get into their minds, their mindset.
Those of you who've been around me know that I've now begun to go back to myself. Go back to that which I believe will sustain me and that which will help to purify me, and have begun to push back and ignore that which I had fallen back down to. More and more I am being guided to study more. If you are not grounded properly, then you are not going to pick up the correct vibrations from the universe and the cosmos. More and more I am being guided to study more. Or if we are trying to lift our brother or sister up, the way we do it is just as important as what we say. How we approach them is just as important. Huh? More and more I am being guided to study more. I have found since my days with the Nation of Islam and no longer being in the mosque that I now draw from all of our spiritual expressions. And that I now have come to, as many of you have heard me say many times, while I was supreme captain or national spokesman or whatever in the Nation of Islam, that if it were not for Africa, if it were not for the original black man and black woman, there would be no Islam, no Christianity, no Judaism. None of the world's major religions, as Dr. Yosef Ben Yachanan, Dr. John Henry Clark, and others have taught us, would be in existence if there were no original black man and woman and no Africa. Africa as it is called now. More and more I am being guided to study more. And I hope that the ancestors will guide me to touch on this Africa thing, to touch on Asiatic. Oh, they say, oh, you got to know what you're doing, boy. Because you know it's a whole lot of us in here. I understand more. I'm a Moor. I understand that nationality is the order of the day. Yes, it is. That's right. I understand that. More and more I am being guided to study more. I can't say that I love you, that I care for you, that you are my sister, you are my brother, taking the prefix BR off and leaving other, that you are my other self. And I do not act morally and righteously toward you. I cannot do it. I make myself alive. More and more I am being guided to study more. Muslim. Are you a Muslim, Khalid? Yes, I am. But I'm a Moor. Islam. I'm a Moor. And got sense enough to know I'm a Moor. And ain't gonna never argue with you that I'm not a Moor. And wouldn't come in your house or come among you and say I'm a Moor if I didn't feel in my heart, in my mind, in my soul that I am. I would tell you, God damn it, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Ain't no more. So if I say it, I mean it. And if I mean it, generally, I say it. You a Muslim? Yes. But I know my roots. And I ain't Kunta Kinte.
Think about that. Think about your first words and yeah, when more study our Quran and questions for Moorish children, prosecutors and magistrates hate us in the admin buildings. Dirty Moors call me pastor with status more tools. They talk big on Facebook with their fingertip truths. No face, no name profiles on YouTube. Provocateur agents acting for payments, selling birthrights to those not patient, not willing to study, but ready and able to bang.
And then we'll talk a little bit about it.
I don't want you to see my bald head. That's all right, you can laugh. I said it, but don't you say it. Of course, I got a little bitty hair. I ain't completely bald. Not like some people. I got a little bit. Now, this one. How many seen these before? Good. Now this.
Let's continue.
That was the first time that I seen him with the hat on, like this. Now, there was people before he came that belonged to the Moorish Americans by Noble Drew Ali. They didn't have this on it, the moon and the star. It was blank. It was blank. But the hat was red. They wear black ones and red ones. And the moon, I believe, on one of them, they didn't have it, but they would stamp literatures that they had to send out to people to come to their meeting. The moon was not on this side, it was on this side. So we asked Master Farad concerning Mr. Noble Drew Ali. He was a good man.
Yes, sir.
I call all of them good that try to tell our people something for self.
That's right.
All of them good. So this hat here is the one that we wore at the first beginning of Muslims in the city of Detroit when Master Farad Muhammad was here, and his representative at that time, and one of the times, the first one that I seen was named Abdul Muhammad. He wore one of these too. The messenger of Allah, he wore one, and you might see this picture sitting out there with it on. He had on one just like this, only the torso was longer. Now I'm going to give you some hints. Some you might see don't have a tarsal on it, right? What is the meaning of the tarsal? What is the meaning of it? Hanging down. Well, I tell you, it means the same thing that it means when you are graduating from school. That means knowledge. This here means knowledge. Same as school, when you graduate from school. I don't know if the devil ever told a lot of our people, so many black people now is graduating, they don't tell them everything, you know, they just let them get on out of here. Yeah, you all right, you hear your diploma. And then when you come out, say, what nationality are you? Oh, I'm a nigger, I'm a Negro, I'm Afro-American. You still dumb as hell. Excuse the expression. But that's true, you know. But you got the tarsal on. And don't know your name. What's your name?
Do you know the book by S.N. Udam on called Black Nationalism? I know you must.
I was with S.N. Udam in Nigeria last month.
I wish you'd tell me about him. Who is he?
Well, he's a Nigerian. At present, he's a professor at Ibadan University.
I didn't know where he was now. I knew he was a scholar.
Yes.
Do you agree with his analysis that the black Muslim religion, Islam in America, has served as a concealed device to gratify the American Negro's aspirations for white middle-class values?
No, I don't think...
he takes that view.
Yes, but I don't think that the objective of the American Negro is white middle-class values. Because what are white middle-class values? And what makes the whites who have these middle-class values have those values? Where did they get it? They didn't have these same values, 400 years, 500 years ago. Where did they get their value system that they now have attained to? And my contention is that if you trace it back, it was the people of the East who brought them out of the Dark Ages, who brought about the period, ushered in or initiated the atmosphere that brought into Europe the period known as the Renaissance, or the reawakening of Europe. And this reawakening actually involved an era during which the people of Europe who were coming out of the Dark Ages were then adopting the value system of the people in the East, of the Oriental societies, many of which they were exposed to for the first time during the Crusades. Well, these were African, Arab, Asian values. The only section of Europe that had a high value system during the Dark Ages were those on the Iberian Peninsula in the Spanish, Portuguese area, southern France. And that high state of culture existed there because Africans, known as Moors, had come there and brought it there. So, the only section of Europe that had a high value system during the Dark Ages were those on the Iberian Peninsula in the Spanish, Portuguese area, southern France. And that high state of culture existed there because Africans, known as Moors, had come there and brought it there. So
I do know that my father feared Malcolm after he broke with the Nation of Islam. He feared the damage that Malcolm could do to his work, to his many years of work. And I know that he would be relieved to hear that Malcolm was dead. I know that. But to say he is involved or ordered this, I can't say that.
Well, are you inferring then that because of this conspiracy the attempt was made upon your life?
The attempt could have been made upon my life. Ask that again.
Are you inferring that because of this conspiracy the attempt was made on your life?
Not necessarily that conspiracy. The attempt was made upon my life because I speak my mind and I know too much, and they know that I will speak it whether they like it or not. Pardon me?
Are you urging your followers to take any actions against the Muslims?
Am I urging my followers to take action against the Muslims? No. No.
When you say you rely on Allah or protecting Allah, you've always been some kind of activist. Do you still think that you're going to try to infiltrate their organization and win over some of their supporters?
Am I going to try and infiltrate their organization and win over some of their supporters? No, I have never tried to win supporters from Elijah Muhammad. Since I have left the black Muslim movement, I've spoken at these rallies. Those who come, come. Those who don't, don't. But I've never gone out of my way to win over any of his followers. And he himself is fearful because he knows that you don't have to exercise too much energy to win his followers. As soon as they know truth and compare the two. And by the way, this is the brother. Didn't even see you there, brother. This is Leon Amir, who was Cassius Clay's secretary, whom they beat unmercifully up in Boston. And the court freed the men who beat him. They fined him $100, was it? Yeah, fined him $100. And he was on the inside of the black Muslim specialty squad. And I know it. And it was he who heard Elijah Muhammad Jr. come to New York when Elijah Muhammad was at the Armory in June of last year, Junior stood up and told the fruit, many of whom are here now also, that I should have been killed, that my tongue should have been put in an envelope and sent back to Chicago by now. And because Fat Joseph had not done it, they demoted him. He remained captain, but Clarence up in Boston was put over Joseph. And Joseph's authority was curtailed. And then Clarence, the captain from Boston, and John, the captain from Springfield, came to New York to assassinate me and came to him to get a silencer and couldn't get it. So the police know this. It's not something that's new. They just wait until the job is done and then they step in.
When you say, do you know that Elijah Muhammad was behind this?
Yes, now, Elijah Muhammad called all of his officials, national officials, to Chicago in October and ordered them to kill or maim any of his followers who leave him to follow me. Well, when you say, how do I know, many of the brothers who were in at that time are out now. And if this ever come into the court, there are plenty of witnesses who can stand up and testify to it. Pardon? Pardon?
This specific law. Do you have any?
I'd rather not say at this time.
When you say you know too much, what do you mean?
Who's the next one? Give them 2 more minutes. Give them 2 more minutes and we'll end it.
You said nobody's going to clean up Parliament but us, and we'll control it. And you said, including the politics.
Yes.
So can you elaborate a little bit on
Yes.
politics?
When I said that no one can clean up our home but us, and that we will clean it up, including and no one should control it but us, including the politics. What do I mean? I mean exactly that. That the black people. You're thinking of who? Powell? Powell's one of us. No, he's not a member of our organization, but when I say he's one of us, I mean he's one of the family. And no one outside the family can get us to talk about him. If we talk about him, we talk about him within the family. But nobody outside the family can instigate us against Powell. Yes, by controlling it politically, I mean that the politics of the community of Harlem should be controlled by those of us who live in Harlem, not by somebody sitting down in Gracie Mansion. Sir? No, but the Organization of Afro-American Unity intends to get involved in every kind of action that's going on in New York City. We don't intend to let anybody downtown influence us in any way, shape, or form. We want the influence to come from Harlem and from other Harlems around the country. Now, this doesn't mean we're outside of Harlem. This doesn't mean we're anti-Bronx or anti-White Plains or anti-white or anti-German or anything like that, but it means we're pro-Harlem. We're pro-ourselves. We want to start doing something for ourselves. That's all it means. It means that we want to stop begging you for your school. We want you to get out of the way and let us straighten out the schools in Harlem. Yes, sir.
I'd like to clarify this quote here. You said, from tonight on, there will be a hot time in your town. Could you elaborate on that?
I just answered it when I said from tonight on there'll be a hot time in the old town. I answered it when this gentleman over here asked. It's a song that we used to sing. An implication, an implied threat. I never imply any threats to anyone. I'm a Muslim. My religion is Islam. It's a religion of peace. And sir? Yes, I do believe there'll be further attempts on my life. I know them. They're foaming at the mouth. The rank and file Muslim means well. It's those at the hierarchy who are living off the fatted calf who don't mean well. And this coming Sunday at 2 o'clock, as I say, our program will be unfolded. Elijah Muhammad knows he has done some good things and he has done some bad things. He knows that if he had wanted to, he could have united our people with the Muslim world just by teaching the right religion of Islam. He could have done so. The entire Muslim world would have accepted him. As it is now, the Muslim world has rejected him. He can never go into the Muslim world saying that he's a prophet or that Allah came over here in the flesh. They would cut his head off if he said that over there. I mean, he knows this. None of his followers can go over there without denouncing him. It's impossible for them to go to Mecca or any other place unless they ascribe to Islam as it is ascribed to over there. So he was in a position to unite us with the Muslim world, those of us who are Muslims. He was also in a position to unite us with Africa. But you cannot read anything that Elijah Muhammad has ever written that's pro-African. I defy you to find one word in his direct writing that's pro-African. You can't find it. Listen to this question this man asked me. What are you trying to get at? No, he asked me, listen, I got to tell him what you asked me. He asked me, don't I think if I got hurt, you know, wouldn't some of my followers retaliate? What are you trying to say? Or what are you trying to get me to say? I mean, it's okay. I'm not going to get you in any trouble. These are your friends in here. But I just want them to hear what you're asking me. That's all. I just want them to hear what you're asking me. You wouldn't get no trouble in here.
Was the incarnation of he was God on earth. You know.
I differed with my father.
Yes.
And I didn't want to differ with him.
Yes.
In fact, I never differed with him directly. I was told, he was told that someone heard me saying something different.
Mm-hmm.
So he called me to question me about it. And I told him that I could more readily believe that he was God than I could believe that his teacher was God, because his teacher was a white man and he said white people were devils. And also I told him that I understand something from your teacher that makes me believe that he said those things, but he also left enough evidence of his real intent, and that was to bring us to the correct idea of God in Islam. For example, my mother, when I was leaving the home one day, after my father had insisted that I accept God the way he presented God, or I was going to be cut off from all communication. He told me he knew it would hurt me to know that I wouldn't be able to see my mother. He said, you won't be able to talk to your mother or see her. So I didn't change. And as I was leaving, my mother was hurt, and it hurt me to see her hurting like that. She said she walked me to the door, which she didn't do. That was normal for her. When my father excused you. And she stood on the porch at the door and she said, Wallace, why don't you go back there and accept? Just say you believe. I said, Mama, tell me what Mr. Farad told you all. I said, did he tell you he was God? And she looked like her face went blank and looked like she didn't know what to say. And a few seconds she said, no, he did not. Said, in fact, he told us to not even call him prophet. Said that was too big a title for him. Then I said to my mother, how can you ask your son now to accept a man as God who told you prophet was too big a title for him?
I see. So I think that is the consistent view that if Master Farad's contribution has been to
Farad was sincere. That's my point.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
He was very sincere.
Any Orthodox Muslim out of the 1.2 billion will readily accept that. But when there is any suggestion of something related to being God on earth,
and Noble Ali, in case you didn't know, existed before the Nation of Islam.
He had the Star and Crescent before the Nation of Islam. He didn't only have a Moroccan flag with a 5-pointed star, he also used the 5-pointed star and crescent. He had the fez before the Nation of Islam. He used the words sun, moon, and star, and freedom, justice, and equality, and all these things before the Nation of Islam even existed.
Who are you? I am the Minister Louis Farrakhan. Spock? Spock, who is he?
A former calypso singer, Captain, who later became leader of a 20th century African-American religious sect known as the Nation of Islam.
You like to buy some incense?
Bean pie, my brother?
No, thank you. What do you want?
I've come to warn your crew.
Warn your crew.
Of their enslavement.
Enslavement?
Aboard this vessel.
Now let's look at Noble Drew Ali. Here's a man that died a young man. Noble Drew Ali. He lived from 1886 to 1929. I salute my brother. He's the first man to bring Islam to us in the way he tried to bring it, and I thank him, thank Allah for him. Moors is the name given to the Muslims from North Africa that invaded the Iberian Peninsula and brought Islam to Spain and Portugal and southern France. So he's calling us Moors, and he dressed his followers in the fez of the Muslim people of the East. Look at what he said. The Moors were enslaved by reducing their mentality to that of Negroes, blacks, and colored people. As a
It's not about who's right and who's wrong per se. It's more so about the truth, what is accurate and what is inaccurate. That being said, let's get down to the science. On a basic level, black is an adjective. An adjective is a word that describes or qualifies a noun. Moor is a noun. Moor represents a people. Black describes the condition, or it describes a color, right? But it doesn't identify the people. We cannot be black. Further, common sense level. Black wasn't used, B-L-A-C-K, that term wasn't used at all before the 14th century, 13th century, somewhere around there.
Islam. I'm also, no, you still got Islam. I'm also looking at the fact that what he's doing is exposing them.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's really not even about him, but what they're really upset with him is they do this with most people, they naturalize.
Yes.
Right? But the part of their stay is they're not supposed to expose this stuff. So what he's doing is really exposing something that they're doing, which they're really upset with him about. That's one reason.
Because he made it a law case.
Exactly.
And so it must be addressed. See, it must be addressed. But again, and this is my whole point, and I'm agreeing with you because I didn't immediately look at it that way. Because Drew Ali had made this argument, we're already in 101 years already. And this stuff is still being debated, which should not even be debated. You know, the baby come up here And she look in the dictionary, the debate is over. The Grand Sheik came here and read United States law on citizenship and dismisses it. It's not even debatable. You comprehend? You know, and we go right in the law book and it dismisses it. And so it's obvious, you know, you can take any beings who don't even know any of this stuff, and in 5 minutes clear us all up for them by going to a dictionary in the law book and to expatriation on citizenship. It's just that simple. And it's a matter of them just simply purging their habits. But the truth is there, meaning that we didn't take all year, you didn't have to take a semester in college to learn this stuff. All you need is to have educated people share their education with you. And the Moorish Science Temple of America is designed to give you an education. And it's beautiful, like what you're saying. See, because once something is taken into what you call a law case, they can't just smooth over. They've got to argue or argue their supports. He's got to argue his supports, and they have to rebut. They make a position, he must rebut. And in doing it, it goes on to the public record, and it creates what you call precedents. You see, so it's obvious, you know, that he's Asiatic, right? And it's obvious that Moors are all around the planet. You comprehend? Now he's bringing up the issue of nationality that has to be discerned, and he's imposing an argument on them that they don't want to hear because it exposes them.
Go
ahead.
Just read this again. It says,
all right.
Mustafa
Hefney feels he's been black his whole life. Feels.
But check this out.
The U.S. government doesn't agree.
I'm gonna ask. I'm a Moor. My fed stays on.
Let's get it,
man. Let's get it.
Man thinketh, so is he Moors. You sleep too much. Wake up and see the 7 bridges crossing in the sky. Can you see that you are a people? Not an organization. We are a people. We are a nation.
Born into a circle of light. And this is to teach us a lesson. Ignorance is darkness. Light is all around us. If God hated darkness and loved the light, that he vanished darkness, and darkness is forever a vanishing thing in his universe. Think over that. Darkness is not real. It is only the absence of light. And when the light comes, where does the darkness go? It goes because it does not have a base for its existence. So it is with ignorance. Ignorance has no base for existence. And as long as a people are walking in ignorance, they are walking in darkness. And when they walk in the darkness, they have no measurement for the time or for their life. For all measurement starts with man's relationship to light. And when you're not in the light, you have nothing by which to measure time. So time passes for the ignorant in a fleeting moment. How long have you tarried? The ignorant do not know, because they cannot tell time, because they are not walking in the light. So those who love God And those whom God has blessed with the light have a responsibility to vanish darkness. Even as the stars and the moon and the sun vanish darkness, men of knowledge, women of knowledge, men of understanding, women of understanding, men and women of wisdom have a sacred yoke around their neck. And that yoke is that you are bound to the light, bound to the principles of the light, and bound to the duty imposed upon those who bask in the light, and that is to lead those who walk in darkness into the marvelous light that you have discovered. If you don't lead others into the light, then God will hold you responsible. For him to whom much is given, much is required. And what man having a light would hide it under a bushel basket?
More lives matter. It seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter. Shot in the back, running or choked out to death on the corners. Mistake this taser for his sidearm, says the coroner. To the yellow journalist that won awards for writing facts, for worldwide web press stories, always calling them black. Civil rights violated, here comes C1-7 and CIA and FBI agent, brethren felons with what Big Brother once heard. Most Moors are nerds and study more than if I'm on the road, no biting curbs. No threats of nooses or fighting for survival. Making Moors martyrs won't happen, calling us captain rival. Inquisitionists, governors and secretaries of state got stateless on their tables like ribeye steak with no care, blood dripping. They eat blacks rare. Foreigners wearing 6-point badges, pretending they're heirs to the vastness of state Maghrib al-Aqsa. Stateless blood flow past a horse's brow, I swear it's agua. Demons thirst quench, stealing pioneers and organs. Psychiatry, death industry, to stars selling black orphans and half-closed coffins, cause legs are missing, killing stateless people, cancer won't even see remission. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter.
System, what system? Not gonna make myself no victim. Run down and kick them up, educate oneself and flip them. All of their titles or nationality strips them. Must grip reality in order to really grips them in this third dimensional illusion. Organized chaos, confusion, stealing your attention, mental intrusion. Universal laws, declaration of the ancients. I self-law and master, from the rooftops to the basements. Hoop these to the spaceship, ever since all creations. Celestial foundations, ocean floor to the ranges, to the mountain tip, to the cosmic infinite. Basically we are way above the shit. In other words, get in tune with spirit. Take a breath and accept mental polarity, gender rhythm, correspondence, vibration, cause and effect.
More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter.
More lives matter, cause I sing it no sound off. It gets defective when rejected, put your mask off. Get my perspective on the record to replay. All the news that on replay until they wanna cast off. Bury them, on to the next one. Enough of them are gunning down. Youths them a cast cross. Can't believe a Tubby that. Can't believe a Taj Pass. Trayvon, Michael Brown died for us to find cause. The afterlife visited the class wrong. Who they really wanna see with the crown on high and the garbs on free? I am free and you're no business but your land or your country to seek your inalienable rights. The insatiable delight of knowing thyself and bringing all injustice to light. For the fight, it's your plight, make your sight for the bright. I'm the mic in the night, foresight for you to realize that.